Hello everyone, I'm Julian Katari and welcome to the Native Journey channel where I will be sharing lots of information about native worldview, about native spirituality, about shamanism, and it will be a channel through which I will be sharing also much of my personal teachings, many of my personal experiences and things that I can share with you that I think they will be useful. I'm focusing on sexual healing, as you might have seen in previous videos. And I invite you to check the video Sexual Healing, where I explain in more detail why I am focusing on sexual healing and why sexual healing is so important in shamanic healing, in general healing. So I'm going to give you a general overview of the path of sexuality and how to get to sexual plenitude, to being plentiful, to being completely happy, okay? So the first step is understanding plenitude. Now, we may differentiate plenitude from happiness. Plenitude is when you're plenty, when you're filled. And that has to do with not just yourself, but other living beings being happy around you. And happiness is a concept which is it goes by quickly. It's a momentaneous feeling, and plenitude is not a feeling. So plenitude is a state of being, which I think we all seek to achieve at some point. So this is very important to understand these two key differences, these two key concepts, plenitude and happiness. And so here we are going to explain the path of sexual plenitude, not happiness. And that means that at some point, as it happens in any type of quest for plenitude, we feel unhappy, we feel sad, we feel sorrow, we feel pain, okay? And this is all part of the path. And as long as we are learning, and this is a quite transcendent thing to state, is that we are always learning, okay? And that is the only real thing that we are here to do. So when we understand this, it will be very helpful to overcome many things and many feelings, because understanding that all that really remains from this lifetime is an experience and a lesson, and being able to learn, that's where you might not feel quite as happy with yourself if you're not a good learner. Okay, so it's not about what goes on outside of you, what type of good things or bad things happen to you outside. It's really about what goes on inside of you, and if you are learning or not learning. So if you're not learning, then you will probably feel bad, but that's another video. But this is quite important because this applies to this path. So we have to understand this, and we have to know that we will be learning, and that any type of situation, experience, or relationship that you have sexually, as long as you learn from it, you are going to be on the path to sexual plenitude. Okay, if you're not learning from it, then you're stuck. Okay, so that's the first step. Now the next step is quite a difficult one to understand, and I might lose a lot of viewers with this step, which is spiritual awakening. Okay, consciousness, achieving a conscious state of being. So we want to achieve a conscious state of being. We want to be conscious. We want to be awakened, spiritually awakened, before we awaken the Kundalini energy, the energy of our body, of our lower body. So there are pretty much two energies in us. One is kind of like a celestial energy, has to do with the mind and the spirit, and the other one is an earth energy, and has to do with our willpower and our body, our sexual energy, and our love, our capacity to love. So the thing is, you can't awaken the lower one first. You have to awaken the upper one first. Okay, so this is really the actual very first step in a path of sexual plenitude, or a sacred sexuality, is awakening the sacred in you, becoming aware of what is sacred, and how to get, and how you must awaken your sacred being. And this is a step that might take quite a long time. It took me 10 years between when I awakened my consciousness, to when I began awakening my sexual energy. Okay, so it was a 10-year process in between those two. And I'm not speaking about how long it took me to awaken spiritually, okay, or my consciousness. So this is gonna be your first steps. If you're not there, well, you obviously may listen to this video, know what's ahead, but you should start focusing on this first thing. And if you naturally are doing this, it's going to be a very natural thing when you are seeking to awaken spiritually and conscious, and in a conscious sense, that you're not going to be really interested in sexuality. Okay, this is a very common thing. It happened to me when I was seeking to awaken, when I was in the awakening process, in the core part of my awakening process, which was very, very drastic. It was very quick for me, because that's my nature. Some people have other nature. Some people have a progressive type of awakening. I had a very sudden type of awakening, which doesn't mean that it continues to mature and grow and I continue to awaken every day. But I did have a very sudden awakening. And at that time, I wasn't really thinking about sex. I was very young. I was 20 years old. No, I was actually 16 years old, I'm sorry. And I wasn't thinking about girls. I should have been thinking about girls, but I wasn't. And why? Because I was so focused on awakening consciousness. And even after that, for many years, I really didn't focus on the sexual energy. I actually gathered my sexual energy, which is a good practice at some point when you're not looking to you want to harvest your sexual energy, keep your sexual energy to yourself. That's something that can go on for many years. That's what many types of monks practice. And I will get into detail about that in other videos, okay? Because there are nuances around that. It's not just all black and white. Spirituality is not all about just keeping your sexual energy. So you also have to use it. You get to a point when you do actually use it, okay? And this is what this is about, okay? So further ahead down the road, let's say you are awakened already. You have awakened spiritually, and now you want to approach. You start feeling the need to come down to the earth and start having other physical experiences that you haven't had. And one of those is having great sexual experiences. So that's what's next. So the thing is, in the next step, you will encounter the following thing. Okay. Now, in the path of sexual plenitude, of sexual awakening, or elevating our sexual energy, we at some point we want to make a partner. We want to find a partner, a definite partner. We want marriage. Okay, that's a good thing. We want a definite one person that we can really just bind everything, our whole universe with, and become a unity with. And this is something that needs a lot of time, and I will be talking about in other videos. But to get there, first you have to think about um, exploration. So the exploration, sexual exploration, is before that. In the natural, in the Andes before the colony, people in the Andes had schools. They had houses where the youngsters would explore their sexuality with other young people, and they would have all kinds of things, orgies, and they would explore sexually with other mates. And this is a very necessary step before going into a definite one-person union, okay, or two-person union. So this is something that you really want to keep in mind, and it's something that is not easy to happen. It's not really happening that much today, because we see a lot of partners that did not have this experience, or that we did, explore. We did have many experiences with other women before we got married, but we didn't do it in this sense of a spiritual awakening, or after our spiritual awakening, or we didn't do it with the freedom and the sacredness it should have. It should be something that is free, and it should never be something we do in the dark. Okay, so this brings us to something that I will elaborate in other videos, that where we need we might consider, if we are with a partner or about to be with a partner, we have to consider having this exploration done with the partner. Okay, we haven't satisfied that need within us. Okay, so depends on where you're at. You have to keep this in consideration. Were you free enough? Did you explore enough? And you always have to do that at some point. Explore with other people, with many people. Okay, get that out of your system. Say, hey, I had sex with 50 women. I'm happy. Now I can stick to one. Okay. Now, what's next? Let's say that you're gonna solve this with your partner. Now, the next thing is adapting to the situation that you are in your life. So this means that you might already have kids. Okay, what I'm showing you here kind of portrays a natural order, which it's the ideal that we should all follow, but then we are not in an ideal world. And especially today in this modern civilization, we are not following any type of natural ideal. We're all just really messed up. Okay, so we have to adapt, and we have to see what things we can fit where and what we should do. So we have to get a good idea of what is our path. Okay, and our path in love has to do, love is there's very two different concepts about love, and I have to do another video about that, but I'll go through it very quickly. Basically, the modern world makes us think that love is just for one person. Okay, that we are just, if you find a partner that you fall in love with and you love, then that doesn't matter. Anything else, it just doesn't matter. And that's not how love should be. Love should be an inspiration and a source of energy and power with which you can nurture the rest of the world and the rest of life. Okay, so your love is a service for the world. And yeah, that's one of the key concepts in real spirituality, is service. Are you here to serve yourself or serve others? There are two paths. So you can serve others, which would be a good path to follow, a very spiritual thing to do. And if you do that with your love, if you use your love to do that, if that love inspires that, if your love creates life, then that's what love should be. So keep that in mind for a next step, and for when you find your partner. And that would be the next step, finding your partner. Now, this is something that needs a lot of coverage, a lot of videos. It actually needs a book that I'm writing, which is gonna talk about the 7 stars of affinity. I found 7 different things, 7 different things that you need to find or that would be ideal to have affinity with, um, if you are thinking about finding a partner that you want to have some definite relationship with, some type of marriage. Okay, but then I have to elaborate that further on. But um, keep in mind, you have to find a good partner, and that's not an easy task. That's probably the hardest task there is, finding the right person. Okay, and we're going to speak about this because you have to weigh it out. You can't just I mean, wait your whole life for somebody to meet all of these 7 stars, and then you never meet him. So you have to kind of settle maybe for less stars. But I'm going to talk about that or in the book and hopefully in other videos. So the next thing is sexual healing, the intimate healing. Let's say that you have found your partner, and this is probably going to happen naturally when you do find your partner, which is going into a very profound and intimate healing where you accompany each other into the deepest part of your being, of your soul, into your childhood. I mean, we're made to think that psychologists are the right person to help us, and in our native worldview, that's not it. The real person that should be your psychologist, your therapist, should be your partner. Okay, that is the correct person to really know you better than anybody else, and that should really deepen into the deepest part of your life and of your feelings and of your spirit and of your childhood. So when you understand this, then you will be able to, when you have consciousness about this, you're going to be able to go into this deep spiritual healing with this person, and that's a very important step. What's going to happen next? You're going to heal your sexual fantasies. Okay, so you might think that some fantasies, some things that attract you are wrong or bad, and there's only one rule about what is wrong in sex. Okay, now this depends on the culture, the specific culture you're following, or the spirituality, which have a different set of concepts which are good to follow, not so strictly but in a general sense. But let's say we don't have any, and we're just completely natural. The only real law that is natural is not hurting anybody else. Okay, so as long as you're not hurting anybody in any sense, then you're not really doing any harm, and what you're doing, your sexual fantasy, is not bad. Okay, but that can change depending on the specific culture, and it might be good to follow certain rules about what is bad. It might be good to have other bad things, okay, or things that you would avoid in a sacred path of sexuality or relationships. But then I only have one rule, which is that one. Okay, and in our dark soul, we all have a dark soul. We want to explore that dark soul, and spirituality is not about going away from your dark soul, but about exploring it. Okay, and you have to explore it and become familiar with it, and you might have some dark fantasies that you might have to explore. You have to explore it. You have to get it out of your system in order to continue to the next step, which is the final step, which you can call the final stretch on the sexual path, sexual plenitude, on the path of sexual plenitude, with this which is sublimation, making things sublime. Okay, which means that things become less and less intense. You need less and less contact, because you're becoming so spiritual with your sexuality and with your body and with your physical energy, that things start becoming more subtle. This is only going to happen after you've healed everything I've mentioned. Okay, and you start elevating your energy. It's also going to come along with your aging, which is going to come naturally. You're going to obviously get to this point in the latter part of your life. It's not going to be an early thing. And so naturally, you're going to start having less and less intercourse, and it's going to be, every time it's going to be more sublime, but also you're going to be in some way prolonging the orgasm, okay? Because everything's going to feel so erotic, just breathing air, looking at the mountains, being with, just touching the hand of your partner can become just such a powerful feeling that you won't need that much sex, and you will get to the point where you won't need sex anymore. Okay, so that is way down the road, and this is the general overview. I hope that you follow me on the next videos where I will be able to elaborate a lot more on these issues about sexuality, and I will also be talking about other things regarding just spirituality, which is also important to complement everything. Thank you.